It's a privilege to be with you, and we believe our paper is best introduced with a reflection from one of our research participants. The truth is, when you are collaborating with strangers whom you cannot always see, it brings up its own unique challenges. So conflicts and opinions are bound to happen, but I'm very proud of how it was managed and of my group. Ironically, Franci and I live 100 meters apart. Physically, we spend most of our time by far collaborating online. We live in an immersive and interconnected world, a world that expects well-rounded graduates and that design education embeds collaborative approaches in curricula. However, Kaupi, Newconen, Suosha, and Carla posit that well-evidenced insight into the pedagogical design principles that should guide the design or construction of collaborative projects remains scant. And this became the reason and motivation for our research study, a qualitative case study of design students' reflections on their experience of a transdisciplinary online collaboration, dealing with a real-world learning project and challenge. And in this specific scenario, students worked together across disciplines for 4 dedicated weeks to develop meaningful, creative, and strategic solutions to challenges in South African business and society. Franci is going to reflect on the nature of our theoretical framework and how we've posited the study.
Right, so we used in our conceptual framework different theories to conceptualize our overall framework, and we used online collaborative learning, OCL principles as described by Johnson & Johnson, within the constructivist learning philosophy of Reeves to inductively arrive at repeating themes that crystallized from respondents' project reflection essays. I'm going to jump right into the OCL theory, first developed by Linda Harrison earlier, but we are going to describe it according to Johnson & Johnson. The rest, if you'd like to read more about the Reeves references, you can find that in our paper. Firstly, Johnson & Johnson talk about the social skills that such a project requires, which should be advanced social skills in online communication and collaboration. Important levels of empathy are required to engage a multiplicity of conditions and perspectives to develop an original and meaningful solution. Then secondly, it needs a positive mutual dependency between the members. Members have and lean on each other and their unique competencies such as strategy, copywriting, graphic design, and digital design. And although they're all trained in research, their capabilities in the latter focus mostly on their own disciplines and competencies, so they have to complement each other there. Then with personal accountability is the third point. Team members are constantly dependent on the input of the rest of the team to progress in their own direction. The collective team ethic encourages personal engagement and commitment to team expectations. Fourthly, then, it's a group process. The project is a group process and requires transdisciplinary problem solving, as what Carla referred to earlier. And then it also needs to promote interaction by online communication and collaboration tools, such as the Blackboard LMS and any other additional online tools that a team might want to add to their toolkit. To analyze then these essays, which were the reflective essays used by or submitted by every member of these teams, we looked at the directed and interpretivist inductive approach for the research to explore the student experiences towards a better understanding. We used these essays to input them into an online platform called Taget for thematic analysis in a very zero-based environment, which means that you still have to look at every word and make up themes and collate themes as they emerge out of your data. It basically is an inductive, open coding type of environment where you then input all your data, and then you identify words that would sort of tag onto specific meanings and your highlights that you then identified yourself. And so you refine as you go along. And Carla will describe to us what themes we analyzed then. This screen just shows you how we use the different theories to make sure that we thematically analyzed and correlate between the various theoretical frameworks that we used. Carla, over to you.
Our thematic analysis of the reflective essays produced 4 themes. And this figure describes how they relate to one another. Theme 1 firmly focused on online collaboration, and where we perhaps expected a preponderance of reflections primarily focused on the 2020 pandemic and the requirements for collaborating in a large-scale project online, such reflections were peripheral, and students were mostly mindful, sober, and practical. Their focus on theme 1 and online collaboration was mostly centered around being better prepared for the working world and reflecting on the many valuable ways in which they were able to source practical online solutions and tools to enhance team dynamics and to enhance working methods. The verbatim statements that bring this to life from the reflection essays, out of all the group projects and activations, this project held the most valuable lessons. It was great meeting new people and learning how they did things. Equally so, we had the odd technical difficulties at the most crucial times, like presenting to the panel, which was frustrating, but luckily we could take it in our stride and carry on. Theme 2 focused specifically on working method and time management as an emerging theme, and 3 sub-themes emerged, focused specifically on the introduction and value of an agreed-upon working method, a code of conduct, so to speak. Also on the differences and adjustments in working methods that students need to make, and the recognition of valuable new working methods. This calls for open communication and a conflict resolution plan that is actually followed by the members. It was really satisfying to work with other designers, and it inspired me to try out work that I never attempted before, mostly as a result of observing peers' behavior. In this instance, then, the emerging and focused theme of Theme 3, personal interest and skills, organizing personal content and interdisciplinary interests. Here, students express the desire to master newfound design skills, to really focus on collaboration and doing so truthfully and empathetically. Students here also reflected on a very genuine interest in other disciplines practiced in the team. When one of us did not know how to do something, the others would stop to teach or to listen as well. I've since renamed folders, created folders, and organized my workspace. I discovered I really handle stress much better than I initially gave myself credit for. I also learned that I adapt very fast to changes. And I found myself getting really involved in X, referring to another discipline, and wanting to contribute and learn more. Our theme 4 focuses on all of the moving parts and what the students mostly refer to as mastering the golden thread, the sum of the parts. Most of the design students' reflections here acknowledged what has been achieved in the overall creative outcome of the online project, with very rich reflections around changing experiences, different viewpoints, different backgrounds, and even working together from different cities. We had an enormous amount of in-depth information on X. To support our idea was a long process. The most satisfying part was both the finished product and the process. And then, of course, a few critical reflections, but again, mastering newfound skills. There was an overall lack of understanding what an insight is and how this leads to a big idea, or how long it takes to come up with and execute a creative idea. This experience made me realize how integrated all my past modules really were and how each one had a role to play in a large-scale project, the sum of the parts. Our discussion and conclusion elaborates, but the focus is really on educators as project designers. Our research certainly confirms that our participants are enthusiastic digital participants, comfortable in this world, and that authentic learning took place, that they made meaningful connections, also with a view to a world that they will be active in professionally. Our focus falls on the critical role of establishing a positive mutual dependency at the onset of the project, how critical it is to embed enough time to get to know one another, to share personal goals, strengths, and views on professional working methods and preferred toolkits. Here, Fears, Hopes, and Norms from Ergulek and Zidney introduces a thought around, if this team turns out to be one of the worst ever, what will its characteristics be? Or a very simple explorative prompt such as, it really annoys me when. All of these methods producing insights that enable students to create a light and nimble code of conduct, to recognize the role of diversity in creative problem solving and innovation, and that in many ways, as several authors reinforced, distributed or rotational leadership plays a key role. Introducing workflow, time, and content management tools, and importantly, based on our thematic analysis, as much as we reflect post-review cycles and panel interventions on the progress of our work, the critical value of reflecting on the progress of the team. And here we lead into our next phase of research. Thank you, Franci.
Right, so our next phase we're very excited about. We're going to use a mixed methods macro analysis, also an online tool, but this one is AI powered, to explore the extent that students from the whole population would experience this specific project. As you can see, this is just a screenshot from this particular tool called Voyant, where you have numerous possibilities of visualizing and analyzing and reducing your themes into the ones that really matter. Thank you.
We look forward to your questions.